Launching a blockchain network is very hard. It's really hard. I saw it firsthand at Cosmos. It took a team, it took a whole team, it took a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. There were many mistakes. There were a lot of obstacles. Like a lot of things have to go right to launch a successful, public network.
Today's guest on the Covalent podcast is Jordan from Lunie. Jordan, how are you?
Hey, Ganesh, I'm great.
Super happy to have you here, Jordan. Jordan, what is Lunie? Give me a 1-minute pitch on how you describe Lunie to a potential end user.
Sure. Lunie is a staking and governance platform for proof of stake systems, available on iOS, Android, browser extension.
I've known Jordan and the Lunie team with Fabo about a year. So we both got into this incubator program called Creative Destruction Lab. And this was last summer, if you guys remember, the Covalent team moved from Vancouver to Toronto for this boot camp, which was a month long. And that's when we got to work together, got a chance to hang out. And then the CDL program is a year-long program, and it's a pretty brutal program. I think there were 50 companies that started out, and today I think there are less than 10. And so I'm happy to have one of the survivors here, Jordan from Lunie. Of course, Covalent survived as well. And so we're going into our next session, which I believe is our final session next Friday for us. And and this is going to be a virtual event. So far, it's been happening every 2 months or so, and we've been catching up. We started out in different ecosystems, different perspectives. So Covalent on the Ethereum side and Lunie on the Cosmos side. But now as we branch out, as we expand, we see a lot of opportunities in the future to collaborate. So that's like the backstory from how we got to know Jordan and the Lunie team. So this is our first ever episode of the Covalent podcast. So let's just get started. Like, how did you get into the space? Like, what attracted you to blockchains?
Yeah, sure. So I was working at a public data aggregation company in Toronto, and I had always been watching the cryptocurrency space kind of on the sidelines, and I wanted to, I wanted it to be my day job. I wanted to really like dig in and start understanding really what was happening in this space. So I've known Ethan, one of the founders of the Cosmos project and Tendermint, for a long time, and so we started chatting, and there was a need for basically they brought me onto the Tendermint team as a product manager, and I ended up doing some engineering management and product design and product management there. That was kind of my first foray into the space. That was like working at Tendermint's like a crash course in blockchains. It was an extremely talented and knowledgeable team. And then I was there for about 1.5 years, and we helped launch the Cosmos network.
Oh, wow. The Cosmos and the Tendermint team are super technical, right? They basically invented a production-ready consensus algorithm, and they put this architecture together to launch the next 100 blockchains. So how was it fitting in with a very technical team, coming in as a product manager, someone with a UI, UX focus? What was that like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it was interesting. I appreciated the opportunity to learn so much about distributed systems and software, a very different kind of software than I was used to. Most software companies, like most startups in the city, are building proprietary systems that where they have control over all the variables, and it's a whole different, distributed systems is a whole different way of thinking about things. It was good. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, still for people that have a product background and design background in the space. a lot of what's happening in the industry is very technology driven,
Yeah,
very engineering driven, and uh, I mean, to be expected. But yeah, there's still a lot of opportunity for people to, you know, build empathy for the end user, to make decisions for a broader audience as opposed to just like a very technical audience. Yeah, so they're very welcoming there. I mean, we were focusing on the wallet, so there's a natural understanding that the user experience is going to be important, but a lot of the work was, you know, translating what exists in the blockchain, you know, translating the technical experience to something
I
that's
see.
easier to understand. Yeah.
So help me understand. So Lunie, I believe it was called something else back then, was a project that was incubated inside or outside? When was the transition to you guys being an independent team and essentially uh, leave the nest, if you will, right?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't a plan that way from the outset. We Fabo and I were kind of working on the wallet team. We had some other great team members there. The product was called Voyager when we joined, um, and as we got as launch approached, I think we started feeling like we wanted to be able to build this software, build this product experience, apply this user experience thinking to more than one network. So yeah, right around launch, we kind of decided we wanted to leave. We worked with them, uh, um, so you know, we left on good terms and have a good relationship with everybody still. But we wanted to be able to define our own roadmap. We wanted to bring the product we had been working on to, you know, to Polkadot, to Tezos, to other, you know, other proof of stake systems. Um, yeah.
When abouts was this?
Luna's like just over a year old, so
Okay.
it was right around launch, basically like March of 2019.
What would you say is the most interesting aspect of your job at Lunie?
Sure. Well, you know, understanding how to run a remote team is interesting. It's fun. I mean, I like building software. I like designing software. What's most interesting about it? I mean, keeping up with this space is like is a
More than,
real
yeah.
is
Oh,
is a lot. There's the amount of the amount of things, the amount of stuff being built and like progress being made uh, yeah is what's most interesting. I think it seems like every day there's a new DeFi protocol, a new staking system, new incentivized testnet, new validator program. You know, some big exchange launching some new product. It's I think that's what's most interesting. It's like trying to keep up.
yeah, you and me. It's more than a full-time job. I actually wanted to tell the community that guys slow down because I have an actual job to do. And so, like last week, there were two decentralized exchanges that launched on Ethereum on top of the dozen or so we have. So I definitely empathize with that view. So you've started with the staking wallet. So you help delegators and validators with their delegations, undelegations, understanding the performance and all that kind of stuff. But let's say if you were not incubated at the Cosmos team, would you have entered a different aspect for this wallet? Because there's DeFi focused wallets, there's trading focused wallets, and then there's staking, which obviously you guys are the best at. So if you were to go back, would you have started with a different entry point? Of course, with the understanding that over the next couple of months, couple of years, you are going to expand your scope and cover all of these things. But your entry point, what is Lunie known for today? Would you have made a different choice?
It's hard. It's a hard question to answer because everything I know now is so informed by the space that we're in. I mean, I think staking is uh, is an absolutely fascinating kind of segment of what's happening in the cryptocurrency world. I think I certainly believe in a future where there are hundreds or thousands of independent blockchains. Um, each of those may have, dozens, hundreds of different protocols running on top of them. But to me, I don't really, kind of coming from the Cosmos world, it seems obvious to me that there's going to be a lot of different blockchain projects. And basically every new blockchain project is launching with some kind of staking system. Even a lot of the new DeFi protocols are, on Ethereum, are leveraging a kind of staking experience, like a some layer, maybe not for the infrastructure layer, but on some level. So to me, like staking is it's an area that we feel like where we can have a big impact. It's an area that we're comfortable in. We understand it, and we're trying to keep up with everything that's happening. But it seems clear that it's the future. So that's why we're excited and why we're here. So probably, yeah, I would say pursuing this, carving out a niche is a good way to start. We're a small team, and we can't do everything. There's a lot of good players in the DeFi space. There's a lot of great Ethereum wallets, Bitcoin wallets, but and now there are some good staking options too. But we feel like we can really have an impact here.
Jumping into the Lunie product itself, what kinds of data do you expose to your users? Do you focus on a specific kind of user and a specific kind of view, or is it more general purpose with multiple configuration options and so on?
Yeah, right now right now Lunie's designed, the data we expose is mostly specific to an address. So you put in an address, you can pick any address, doesn't have to be yours. It's kind of like a personalized block explorer in that way. You can put in any address, see that address's portfolio, staking portfolio, you can see their transaction history. Of course, all of this data is available on the public blockchains. So it's designed from a token holder's perspective. Validators do use Lunie for staking and governance purposes, but you sign in with a regular address, and you can see data. You can see your balance. You can see the rewards claimed, rewards that need to be claimed. You can see your staking portfolio. That would be the list of validators that you have staked to. You can see governance proposals. Of course, you can vote on those. You can create a proposal, actually. And then, so kind of what you'd expect. There's a blocks page. We show some data about some stuff that's happening on the chain, but it's really tailored towards like the end user, the token holder who's staking or interested in staking.
I believe someone from the Cosmos ecosystem, I can't remember, I think it was Ethan, said something about you guys hacking the governance proposal to promote Lunie. What was that? Just,
Yeah. Well, no, it's not really a hack. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. It was a few months ago. Cosmos has an on-chain governance system. It's right now very simple. Like you can make a text-based proposal. It will end up on the blockchain. It costs like 1 microatom. So yeah, 1 microatom, U atom to make a proposal. And of course, so if you make a proposal, it stays for 2 weeks. It can accept deposits on that proposal to see if it should go to the voting period. So when we launched our mobile apps, iOS and Android, we just said as a proposal, like, because we want it to show up in everybody's block explorers and other wallets that have the proposal feature. I'm surprised there isn't more spamming going on, or advertising. It's a good advertising platform, for a couple, for a fraction of a penny, you can kind of appear in a bunch of products around the internet. So yeah, I mean, the response was, I don't know, we didn't get a lot of negative feedback from it. Maybe we should do it again.
Yeah, not too much though, because you don't want to. Well, I guess all press is good
I
press.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
I think these platforms are fundamentally about experimentation. I don't
yeah.
think anybody thinks that the governance system on Cosmos or on any blockchain is flawless, right? Like, you know, there is real money on the line, and there are real assets involved. But at the end of the day, these are software experiments. Like Tendermint is still in alpha technically. If you go to GitHub, Tendermint's on alpha. It's running, hundreds of blockchains
Right.
in production.
What is next? Like, what kind of views? What kind of data? What kind of features are you going to be building into Looney over the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of interesting data that is not easy to access right now, but we're working on it, or maybe we'll be working with you on it. Um, I mean, historical data is obvious. Being able to watch your balance over time, especially in a system that's kind of based around rewards, you want to see how your balance is changing over time. Um, Historical data in blockchains that upgrade is a challenge too. So right now, the Cosmos Hub is on the third version. So right now, Looney doesn't show data from Hub 1 and Hub 2. So this is like transaction history. Of course, your balance doesn't reset or anything like that. But so just having more, having a comprehensive being able to show all the data that's relevant, despite the technical challenges, is the role of a UI. I think the role of a product like ours. Um, we're particularly interested in advancing the state of like validator data. So we're in a unique position. We're adding a bunch of new networks to Looney over the course of the year, and then we can start aggregating data across networks. Like validator profiles right now are per network, but we can combine them and show the uptime across networks. We can show the commission rates across networks. We can show all types of different data from multiple blockchains, which I think will provide users with a more comprehensive picture, right? Yeah, voting power across networks is kind of interesting, right? Maybe some everybody stakers have different objectives. Some just are optimizing yield. Some want to promote decentralization, and so getting more. I think aggregating data is really the next thing. We're in a unique position to do that. From a data perspective, too, the next thing is for us the notification system. So like there's a lot of stuff happening. These blockchains don't sleep, right? They're online and
Unless you're IOTA.
Sure. So every 6 to 8 seconds there's a new block and things are happening. Right now there aren't really any great notification or like alerting systems for end users. So it's one example. I have a staking portfolio and includes a bunch of different validators. I don't get any notifications if any of them experience any downtime or if they change their commission rates or their fee rates, right? Like, so there's important stuff happening all the time. If there's a slashing event on any blockchain that I'm on, I would love to know about it. A few weeks ago in a Cosmos Telegram, there's like people were freaking out. One of the validators was offline and nobody could get a hold of them. And it's like, well, so some of the validators have monitoring and alerting systems in place, of course, for their own purposes. But I think a user-facing product in this area is something we're working on and pretty excited about.
Yeah, I believe their alerting and monitor is more on the infrastructure layer.
Exactly.
So they have missed blocks and that kind of stuff, which is not super helpful to the end user. What kind of data sources or what kind of data are you trying to understand in order to prioritize feature requests or to understand the ecosystem? How do you make data-driven decisions at Looney?
I use products like Masari and Staking Rewards to get an overview of what's happening. We're in the process of determining our network roadmap, like which networks we're going to add next. So we have to consider a lot of different data points there. One is market cap, of course. One is, but even what's I think what's more valuable to us is like active communities, and that's a harder thing to measure, a harder thing to collect data on too. I mean, we have a grading system for our network integrations. We look at things like, you know, number of Twitter followers, Telegram participants in Telegram, number of wallets, period, and then something we're working on now is trying to understand the number of wallets that are actually participating in staking, right? Because there's a lot of, you know, wallets that just have a couple tokens in them sitting and doing nothing, and we're particularly interested in the staking community. So data is a challenge still. Yeah, there's a lot of, we know there's a lot of data, but it's hard to get it, and especially you know, across. I mean, you know how hard it is to get good data on Ethereum, on one blockchain. We're talking about potentially hundreds, and there is no kind of native, you know, data system that's easy to access, easy to query. So yeah, that's something we're working on.
Very cool. So the most important thing for you is engagement data rather than just market cap, rather than just number of transactions. It's basically how many end users or potential end users, as part of your due diligence in whether you want to support or prioritize a certain blockchain integration. Because yeah, that makes sense. If you were to rank all of the possible integrations, first column is the list of blockchain networks. The second column are the size of the community. And then if you just focus, it's always the Pareto principle, right? 80-20. So if you just do 4 integrations and you have maximum exposure, and maybe the rest you can get to it when they reach a certain threshold. Okay, that's very smart. Awesome. If I were a blockchain network, I can either be pre-launch or post-launch. And pre-launch, there can be multiple phases. I could be having a test net. I could have a beta net, an alpha net, a main net. What would a process look like from a timeline and integration standpoint to have my blockchain network's data exposed through Lunie, and I can send people to Lunie in order to participate in securing my network?
Sure. So it really depends on a couple. There's a few important factors. One is like the underlying data model, the framework that was used to build the blockchain. So because we already have some Cosmos integrations and we're very familiar with the technology, if you're a Cosmos SDK blockchain, you know, it can be a few days of work for us to basically, once we secure an endpoint for the data, like from a node that's running, yeah, you know, it's a few days to get everything to our standard. We basically, our API will query the node, all the endpoints we need, transform the data the way that we like to show it in the front end, on the web and in mobile, and then that's it. We work on some announcements and, you know, try and get people to use it. For networks with totally different data models, or like, you know, unique layer 1 networks, I would call them. You know, depending on how good the documentation is and what the existing infrastructure is like, it can take a little bit more time, but, you know, it's a few weeks. And of course, it depends on things like, you know, we're announcing the Kusama integration very soon. We've been working on that for a while. You know, a lot of I'll give you an example. A lot of the validators in Kusama, they don't have names, like human readable names or images yet. You know, so we have to make decisions about our user experience. Like, what do we do? Like, if you look at the validator list, if you're a potential staker on Kusama and you look at the validator list and it's all, you know, hashes and, you know, non-human readable information, is, you know, what are we going to do about that? So things like that pop up occasionally when we're looking at new networks. Like, what are the optimizations we need to make that, you know, we didn't account for because this is a new set of APIs and new data model. With the Kusama integration, like, it takes about a minute right now to query rewards.
Okay.
Like reward data for the end user. So, we've been developing a system to make this, take a second or less instead. So those kinds of things are harder to predict, but yeah, it takes a couple of weeks to get a stable integration done. And there's a few milestones, just a few like levels of integration. The first level is just showing data, as you said. So we can do that relatively quickly. The second level is an integration with address management features and transactions. So like signing, creating an address, recovering an address, signing transactions or messages. And we do that on mobile and in the extension. So that takes a bit more time. It's a bit more involved. You have to understand, another set of libraries basically. And then the third milestone or deliverable for us usually is a hardware integration. And, that's a whole nother set of libraries and things to overcome, user experience challenges. And that's assuming, in the case of Ledger, like the Ledger app's already available on the Ledger Live store. It's usually in the Ledger Live app, it's usually not. And so, those are the things we think about. And yeah, so we're looking from a few days to a few weeks, depending on the complexity of the integration.
And so I'm guessing from the Lunie side, the architecture is designed in a way where you can plug in these different networks and you provide a unified interface to your end users, because it doesn't make sense. It would be very jarring if every network had a completely different view, right? So more or less, of course, there are going to be nuances. So what if a particular network doesn't have the data in a format, or you're not able to query the data in a format that fits into your model? Like, what has that ever happened so far? Would that blow up your realistic timelines? Like, can you give an example of a network that has happened?
No, it's a pretty flexible system we have. So, if data doesn't exist, for example, like some of the networks that we have or that we're looking at don't have governance yet, that's fine. We just we don't try to integrate the governance features if it's not there. Yeah, in the case of Kusama, as I was saying, like, there isn't the kind of simple rewards endpoint that we might get from Cosmos SDK, which to us is critical information. Like, the user comes every time a user comes to check their portfolio, they want to see how many rewards they've earned. So the performance on that endpoint. Now, granted, Kusama's a testnet and kind of and they're in rapid development. They're updating the API really often, so this could change. But right now, it takes like a minute to query the rewards because it has to go back through all the eras and do this rewards calculation. That's not really acceptable in a user-facing product. So we designed a system that would kind of scrape this data in advance and then be able to serve it upon request instead of letting the node do the processing for us, basically. That's an example. Time that we didn't expect to be spending on something we took for granted, that there would be a nice clean endpoint for rewards data. That's okay. These are all like interesting engineering problems, and we have a great engineering team, so they tend to figure it out.
Yeah. When is too early? If I had a white paper that I wrote, maybe I outsource it, but I have a white paper. I come to Lunie and say, hey, I want an integration. That's obviously too early. But along the spectrum,
maybe not. Maybe we should put a PDF viewer as for a white paper project.
That's a great idea.
Nice
Actually,
idea,
this just came to my mind. But if you provided an SDK, a Lunie SDK, that a network has to adapt to, I think that would help educate the newer networks in how, just from your experience, because you've integrated with all of these networks, and this is the minimum bar. And so just like how you have your tiers of integration, you can have tiers of SDK levels or whatever you want in terms of the granularity. And so the blockchain network can expose and an endpoint to fit that level. For example, having human-friendly names for validators.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a feature, maybe that's not a feature, but that would be one of the checkpoints on that list.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, we get a lot of questions about that. And I've started writing a post actually, more around like what's important to bootstrap a proof of stake community. But I think on the technical side, yeah, there are a number of things that will make the end user experience just so much easier and so much smoother for anybody who's implementing any UI. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get into a controversial question.
Uh-oh.
Amongst your competitors or potential competitors or competitors you don't even know about, what are they getting very, very, very wrong? Like completely like off base. Like you look at this as like, oh, these guys are clowns.
So, no, I don't feel that way. There are a number of patterns that I reject, I guess. One is I download every cryptocurrency wallet I ever hear of, right? I want to test it out and feel it and see what it's like and see what data they're showing and understand really what the user experience is like. If I have to write down a seed and then re-enter it just to use just to see inside of an app, like to me it's like it's such a barrier. We designed Lunie from the beginning to you don't have to sign in, you don't have to have an address, you don't have to tell us who you are. It's an open website. If you visit Lunie, you can see the validator list on any of our networks. You can read the governance proposals. Like the data isn't behind a seed phrase because there's value in the data aside from necessary showing this data is one of the things we offer. It's one of our value propositions, I suppose, and making transactions is another kind of use case and user story. So that's one big thing. Like if you're building a wallet, don't show value before you make people commit to the 3 to 6 minute seed process. Like I make these seeds, I never intend to send any tokens to these wallets. I just want to see what it's like and feel it. That's one big thing. Like I don't understand. Like the barrier is very high still. Aside from that, I think something we noticed early on, or one of our hypotheses, one of the reasons we thought we could build something interesting here, is an emphasis on community. Like I think that's missing from a lot of wallets. A lot of existing wallets come from like the narrative I see at least is like proof of work coins. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the ERC20 tokens. They're very in the early days at least, were very finance folk, very personal finance. It's all about your balance and the transactions you're going to make, and there's no relationship between a token holder and a miner. Like it doesn't matter to anybody which miner mined the ETH that they have in their wallet. In proof of stake systems, it's fundamentally about the community. It's about it's a kind of three-sided network. You have the team stewarding the project, usually public developers and marketing teams, and people trying to grow adoption on their new platform. You have token holders, and you have validators or network operators or bakers, whatever you want to call them. And from the outset, I think this is different. This is different than what we've seen before. We have validators who are, some of them are anonymous, but a lot of them are public facing. They're individuals or people. They have logos, websites, contact buttons, and so I think fundamentally this is about like a set of relationships, and I think that's it's clear that a lot of wallets that are moving into staking are still in an old paradigm where it's just like it's not about understanding what's happening in the community. It's not about understanding the social part of the network, and I think in the next year you're going to see a lot more community focus on Lunie. It's about the contributors to the network. It's about the different network stakeholders. I think that's something that we're getting right, and we'll get right, and that maybe some of our competitors are getting wrong.
What have you learned in 2019, which is brand new, super insightful, and has helped elevate your performance and how you approach work in 2019 and in 2020?
Yeah, we've spoken with I've personally spoken with over 40 staking networks in the last year. Trying to pitch them on a Lunie integration, but also understand what their struggles are, what's working for them, what's not working. And I think launching a blockchain network is very hard. It's really hard. I saw it firsthand at Cosmos. It took a team. It took a whole team. It took a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. There were many mistakes. There are a lot of obstacles. Like a lot of things have to go right to launch a successful, public network. I think at times what that means is, you can't prioritize everything. So I think there's still, it's hard to, there's not a lot of empathy yet from a lot of these new networks for the end user experience. They have a lot of other priorities, like, making sure the software works. They have to get figuring out a token sale in some kind of, legitimate way. Making sure the software works, testing the software, recruiting developers, recruiting validators, building a incentivized testnet program. And I think it's a huge undertaking. Launching a successful public system is a huge task. Like it's, there's so many stakeholders, and I think so. One of the learnings, I think, is like we took for granted that networks and new projects would feel the same way we do about the end user experience. Everybody wants to say like it's going to be a great UX experience. It's going to be an easy, a good token holder experience or a good validator experience, but it doesn't come for free. You have to devote to time and energy, or work with a company like us to make sure you have a great product for people to use. So I think that was one of the interesting learnings. Like we can't we can't sell, like we can't force empathy. Like if it's not there, then it's going to be tough for us to sell our integrations, and that's forced us to adjust how we pitch things, and also look to some other opportunities.
That's so interesting. If a blockchain network doesn't have a need or the timing is off, then there's no business there.
Yeah, we were very focused when we started on we thought, okay, we're just going to do network integration, paid network integrations. We wanted to have the very simple SaaS model. We'll just, okay, there's currently 100 networks. Next year there's going to be another 100. Let's try and get all of them on Lunie. It's so obvious that our fee is so much less than like hiring a product team or even just hiring one developer. It's going to be, it's a no-brainer for everybody. And then over the course of a year, we have some success, but also a lot of rejection. We learned a valuable lesson, which is that timing is important. As you said, timing of these networks, like a lot of them are early. A lot of them are very early. They haven't felt the pain of not using a product like Lunie yet, right? They're just trying to get the thing out the door. They're trying to build a community. There's so much going on. So at first it was frustrating. It was like, why don't they get it? Like it's so obvious to us. Now I think after a whole year of learning and reflection, it's like, yeah, timing is important, and empathy. Empathy for the segment of the network that we're interested in, tends to come later, and so it can be hard to sell to early networks. Yeah.
How do you know you're succeeding week after week, or month after month, or quarter after quarter, or year after year? What is that one chart that is up and to the right, or you want it to be up and to the right? Obviously, revenue, but Lunie is a lot more than just making money, right? There, you have a specific view on the world that you want to express through your product and your company. So, what is that one metric that you care about? And it's you every new team member, every partner knows that this is what you're about. What is that? How do you know you're succeeding with Lunie, not financially, but as an ecosystem partner
Yeah.
or a pillar?
Yeah, we look at the percentage of stakers on a network that are using Lunie.
Thinking back to Lunie, the product, wallets have traditionally had a retention problem, right? So if I were a delegator, how often would I delegate this? Maybe once a month. Maybe I check my balances, and then it's not like something I would use twice a day, right? It's not a Snapchat. It's not a communication tool. So how are you thinking about this retention problem? Because you're non-custodial, and if there is an emergency, they might end up using a different product to resolve the issue, right? So how are you thinking about the retention issue? Has that come up yet? What are your thoughts around making the product stickier because you're non-custodial? That's a specific challenge for non-custodial wallets.
I think it's easy to dismiss non-custodial products as too easy to churn, or stickiness will never be there because users can just leave whenever they want. I mean, it's true, and I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. We can't, the data that's relevant to us and to our users is not siloed in Lunie database, right? It's on the blockchain. I think that forces us to stay competitive, and I think it's probably a net good for it's a net good for the end user. The switching cost is still very high. The chances that somebody's going to find, our real value proposition is the user experience. We still have a lot of work to do. We have not solved this. We don't have the type of experience we know we can offer yet. We're still, it's something we're constantly working on. But if you take a look at some of the other options, there's a bunch of problems with switching. One is just like it can be confusing and clunky. So let's say you find another wallet that supports staking on Cosmos. A bunch of the other options in the space, they don't show the whole validator list, for example. So if you have a portfolio of validators, and they're not all, like, for example, Trust Wallet, they don't show every validator right now. So I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. If you have, maybe it results in an incomplete overview of the data. If you care about governance, a lot of the wallets that are offering staking don't offer governance support. So there's more. I think there's more to stickiness and churn than just like it being non-custodial. If we provide a good experience, and what we've seen is people, if people are comfortable with the security of our system, of the user experience, of the language we use, the way we describe things, then people stick around. It was a bit concerning at the beginning because we saw a huge increase in engagement and activity right at the beginning of the Cosmos network, and then over time it went, it kind of slowed down. Now we're comfortable with this idea because there's a and I expect we'll see the same thing on Polkadot. There's a rush at the beginning for all of these unstaked assets to become staked assets, and so we feel like if we can capture that wave at the beginning, we don't really see users leaving, because we provide a good experience. It's easy to use, it's easy to understand, and I think the network effect that we're trying to build is around the multi-network experience. So I don't think there are a number of. It's a real challenge to standardize the user experience across, let's just say, Cosmos, Polkadot, and Tezos, and I think we're going to do a really good job there. even if you just think about the language, you have validators in Cosmos, you have bakers in Tezos, and so we have to a lot of the work that we do goes into standardizing this experience, standardizing the user experience. So I think reducing that friction there will I'm not too worried about the retention problem. Users like our users love using Lunie, and I think it's easy to I think in the industry we overestimate the churn from it being non-custodial. I'm sure you can relate to some products that you use. You're leaving your seeds where they are, so to speak.
Yeah. So my belief here is that brand is the only defensible asset you have. That's it. And so with Lunie, not only is it non-custodial, it's also open source. So in theory, someone can come in and fork your code and launch a competing product, but they can never copy the Lunie brand and the voice and the placement in people's minds. So
Sure.
that is truly defensible. And as you get the flywheel started with one network, two networks, three networks, hundreds of networks, Lunie will then become the default choice for a lot of the upcoming networks. So there's that network effects, which I think is very, very cool. And
it's similar to this idea that like you can just fork something and then all the value is gone.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, like, of course there are a lot of forks of Lunie, and some of them are online and great, people use them, and it's exciting to see when somebody does that. But some of our customers that have forks are talking to us about doing Lunie integrations, right?
Of course, yeah.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more going on. Hey, I'm Jordan, co-founder of Lunie.io, and I'm super excited to be on the Covalent podcast.
Excellent. Double thumbs up for you.